Gramoglia, the president and CEO here at Woodland Pond, and this is my weekly address for Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. I have quite a lot to go through today because, as you know, we started a more focused opportunity for residents to give some feedback in the rumor mill and suggestion box over the last couple of weeks. And the topic that we started with was safety. So I've got a whole pile of things to go through about that. I'm very excited. Before we get into that, though, just a couple of calendar items. The trans talk with Phoenix Laxton and Charlie Solodum from the LGBTQ Center of the Hudson Valley, which was scheduled for Monday the 31st, has now been moved to Wednesday, April 9th, and that will be at 7:15 p.m. in the PAC. This Thursday is the opening day of baseball, and as we always like to do, we encourage people to wear your favorite baseball attire, baseball cap, jersey, t-shirt, represent your favorite baseball team. And your favorite ballpark foods will be available for purchase in the pub on Thursday between 12 and 3. On Sunday at 3 p.m. in the PAC, a fan favorite duo will be coming. Benjamin Wheel and James Stewart will present a piano and vocal recital, which includes a piano sonata and a song set by Hector Berlioz. For those that don't know, Benjamin's mom, Daphne, was a longtime resident here at Woodland Pond, and several times a year, this duo comes and graces us with their incredible musical stylings. So I would encourage you to attend that on Sunday at 3 p.m. in the PAC. Today, you will see that we have placed new schedule signs, I guess we'll call them, outside the common area rooms, and we'd love your feedback. This came from a combination of observations and some suggestions that came up from residents about, we don't really ever know necessarily what's going on inside of a room. We don't carry the calendar around with us and so forth. So we thought we would try this. So if you look at the common area rooms in the community building, you will see a sign that says what today's day is and what today's date is, and what is going on in that specific room on that day. Obviously, this is things like meetings, calendar events, those kinds of things. If somebody privately has reserved the room, typically that wouldn't be on there. But again, we are welcoming all feedback, and we hope that you find these helpful. A reminder that we have a lost and found table outside of the bistro, which is the small alcove area to the left of the marketing office where the main kitchen exits out into the hallway. And last but not least, in accordance with our themed rumor mill and suggestion boxes, the next week we will ask you to provide feedback specifically to maintenance and housekeeping issues. So without further ado, we will go through first and foremost the general rumors. I got a chuckle out of a couple of these. We'll start with those, and then we'll go into some of the more specific, I think, safety-related issues and so forth. So the first, which, oh, how I wish, the Woodland Pond Capital Campaign project has brought in $100 million. So all of the renovation and expansion at Woodland Pond, including the health center, will be started and completed in June of this year, 2025. And Woodland Pond will be in the black. So, oh, how I wish. We actually have not initiated a formal capital campaign yet, and certainly would not be talking about anything in the orders of magnitudes, even in the tens of millions, let alone 100 million. But I hope that this gets manifested, and I don't think we'll quite be done by June of 2025, even if someone wrote us a $100 million check. But this would be a great momentum and way to get things started. The next, I'm actually going to skip, and I'll explain why. This is clearly satire about Elon Musk, his 14 children, where he came from, what some of the things that he's doing. The reason I'm going to skip it, even though it is satire, is because I'm very concerned about any little spark of information going out, even if it's said completely in jest, somehow being taken as fact. And I think right now there's enough misinformation, changing information, rumors, you name it, related to everything in Washington, globally, et cetera. Better to just not even manifest this one. But I do appreciate the satire. And again, I would always recommend that you check two sources for any information that you're choosing to believe. You will find opposing viewpoints, opposing record keeping, if you do your due diligence, but it's important to stay informed. And rumors don't do any of us any justice in that regard. Okay, so without any kind of system to this, I guess, what we will do is I will go through the requests and so forth that came through. Some of these are clearly safety related and others are other categories. All right, so there's two here that both relate to the same thing. And what it boils down to is that these writers believe that artists of any type that come to do presentations at Woodland Pond should be able to sell books, painting, CDs, music, etc., after their presentations to Woodland Pond residents. This and the longer letter both take the presumption that that's not permitted. And this is a great opportunity for me to correct that. So we currently have a speaker acknowledgement form that every speaker is required to fill out that states a variety of things, including what topics are allowable, what aren't allowable, what kinds of activities are allowable, what aren't allowable. And I think there's probably language in there that says no solicitation of residents at all, which is exactly what's in keeping with our handbook. But there's a very important clause in the handbook that says those kinds of things, and it specifically states sales of things to residents may be approved or are prohibited except with management approval. So there's absolutely an opportunity for it. The way that that would work is that if there is a presenter or someone that would like to sell something or have the opportunity to do so when they're here at Woodland Pond, we would need to know that in advance. It would need to be approved by management, which could be Bridget Blum from a corporate compliance perspective. It could be my office, but it's got to be approved in writing by someone. We need to understand what they're trying to sell, what the parameters are, et cetera. And most importantly, that needs to be made aware to residents before they attend. Because the reason we have the no solicitation clauses, these came from years of trouble with this, where people would come and do a presentation or whatever it was, and without knowing that they were going to be selling things, residents felt like they were being solicited. So this is why the clause is there, but we absolutely do have flexibility there, and we just need to have conversations about it. So if you have someone that you know that's in that category, make sure you coordinate that with us, and assuming we have no objections, we can get that rocking and rolling. The next, do not shut off lights in the Woodland Pond gym. Correct. Thank you. Yes, we have a safety policy that says that the lights must be on in the gym and in the pool when in use, because it's a safety issue. Please also do not move the location of equipment in the Woodland Pond gym. These situations create a safety problem in the gym and should be stopped. And I agree 100%. We will make sure that Matt and company stay attuned to that, and don't be shy to push back on residents that may try to turn the lights off, because it is a safety issue, and at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Let's see. Skilled nursing residents check off certain food request items on their room menus and receive different food items. This could potentially be life-threatening and should be fixed. So a couple of things related to that, and you will see this throughout the course of my address today. This goes into the category of, if you experience something or you see something, please report it right away. We can't know what's going on unless you tell us. So absolutely, and this is a very human-driven process. Humans are filling out the menus, and then humans are interpreting the menus and providing the food. And that's not just in skilled nursing, that's in assisted living, garden view, independent living, and skilled. And we absolutely want to get it right. Now, in terms of the allergies, which is what I think this person is referencing here as being a potentially life-threatening situation, we have a completely formalized system between our full-time dining room manager in the health center and our registered dietitian and the production staff to make sure that any allergies that we are aware of are recognized and input into the resident's dietary profile. That's for the health center. We don't do that in independent living. What is critical is that we're aware if you have any kind of a food allergy. I'm not talking about intolerances or preferences, but the allergies is where this potentially, you're absolutely right. If someone has an anaphylactic response to some type of a food category, or any kind of other environmental or pestilence exposure, whatever, we need to know that. So on that mark, please make sure we're aware of any allergies that you have. We do have a system in place to color code menus for people that have allergies and so forth for the health center. But also, if you ever experience something like this and you aren't getting what you ordered, we want you to tell us right away. And we're going to do everything that we can to fix it in real time. That can be something that you didn't order that came to you, or something that came to you that you did order but you're not satisfied with. Our production staff wants nothing more than to satisfy you and meet your dietary needs, but we have to be told and in that moment so that we can fix it. Okay, the next one. This says that skilled nursing is understaffed at night, and this is a dangerous situation with patients ringing for staff that don't come to assist them. Again, a wonderful opportunity for us to refer all of you to empirical data that tells us that we know that that is not accurate, even though that may be what's being felt. So I want to talk about the facts first, and then I want to talk about what to do if you feel that that's the situation that's happening in that moment. Because we all know that perception can become reality at times. So I think you're all aware at this point that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services several years ago went to a system of tracking staffing in every single nursing home in New York State, healthcare facility, long-term care, et cetera, based off of payroll records. So these are not records that we manually manipulate, send in, et cetera. This data comes directly from our payroll provider based on people punching in, time cards, et cetera, which job description they have, which department they work for, when they were here, worked hours versus vacation, and on and on. And the reason that that is important is because there is a lot of scrutiny put on how much staff facilities like ours have per resident per day. That's always the category that gets measured against, per resident per day. And not only does Medicare, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services track this information, but they also make it publicly available. And they provide a star ranking out of 5. And so Woodland Pond consistently ranks 5 stars out of 5, which when you look at it here, it says is much above average. And we do know that, particularly for skilled nursing, the average total number of staff hours per resident per day, not including housekeeping and maintenance and admin. This is just direct care staff. So CNAs, LPNs, RNs, and physical therapy. Those are the 4 categories that go into this. The average in the country is 3 hours and 51 minutes. The average in New York State is 3 hours and 38 minutes. And Woodland Pond's average is 6 hours and 3 minutes. So we are at least a third, if not double, both the New York State and national averages. And these are recalculated every 90 days. Particular to CNAs, which are the most likely category that this person is referring to. The national average per resident per day is 2 hours and 19 minutes, and in New York State, 2 hours and 11 minutes. Here at Woodland Pond, it is 2 hours and 49 minutes. So again, at least a half an hour more per resident per day in terms of our CNA staffing. That being said, what you're perceiving is very important. And so if there's ever a time that you feel that there's been an undue length of time for a call bell, for example, you've got lots of avenues to report that. First and foremost, it should go to the nurse in charge. There are RNs and LPNs in charge 24/7 at Woodland Pond. That would be your first bet. The second would be to escalate this to anyone in our management team, which would be Gia Dupuis, who is the unit manager on skilled nursing, Charlene McCumber, who is the unit manager on assisted living in Garden View, Debbie Vining, who's our director of nursing, Philip Mail, our administrator, myself. And we're going to look into that right away. Several of us have access to the call bell reports, and we look at them regularly because we do have expectations that call bells are being answered. We are very dedicated to making sure that the staff has all of the tools and technology that they need to be aware that call bells are going off. We've just enhanced that handheld technology significantly for our CNAs within the last month. And it's really important that if you're observing that or experiencing it, that you let us know because we're going to look into it. We're going to try to find out why you felt that there was that lag in a response to a call bell or any other concern that you have like that. The other options that you have, if you don't feel comfortable coming forth in that way, which really is the best because it's real time and we can look at it, you have the Health Center Committee, and the Health Center Committee very much sees itself and puts itself out as an advocate for the residents. And oftentimes, if they're getting recurring complaints or concerns about call bell times and things like that, they absolutely will report that to us. So you have the Health Center Committee. You also have in each skilled nursing and then assisted living a resident council. And those are attended by our our activities manager for the health center, Sue Close. She record keeps any concerns that are raised at those resident council meetings, and certainly call bells are well in scope of what could be reported there. And then there is a family council for the health center, maybe for those residents that can't articulate concerns themselves to either the health center committee or the residents councils. Family council is a great place to bring it up. But again, it's like a see something, say something. If you're observing this in real time, please escalate it to us. We have access to look at the information. We can look at the staffing. We can look at the call bells and see if we can find out if was there maybe an emergency that people were attending to in another room, was it a lunch break, et cetera, so that we can manage the staff around that to more adequately meet the needs of the residents. Next, I hear that the heating system in the classroom, game room, dining, etc., will remain cold or at best sporadic. This is in spite of coming improvements. Is there no hope? We would like to be comfortable and a bit less modern. So this is something that is near and dear to the Plant Ops Committee. And I would absolutely refer whoever wrote this note to the Plant Ops Committee. If you were to go into any of those rooms that are referenced, you will see a laminated sign next to the thermostat that says the appropriate range of temperature for that room based on whether it's heating season or cooling season. And that, again, was established by consensus at the Physical Plant Committee, Plant Ops, like not good with the name, but yes, Physical Plant Committee. And I know that they would welcome further conversation. The nice thing about those signs being right next to the thermostat, if you're feeling like a room is too hot or too cold, you can look right at the thermostat and the thermometer that's in the room and identify whether or not the room temperature in the room is actually reading within that range. As we know, cold temps, sensitivity to coldness and heat are very, very individualized. And so we did establish with significant resident input what the appropriate ranges would be for each room, depending on if it's summer or winter, heating or cooling, and then have those thermometers right in the room so that we can determine if the room is falling outside of those ranges. If the room is falling outside of those ranges, the best thing to do is call concierge, and then they will radio maintenance who can adjust the temperatures in their computer system. So there's a great system in place. Again, temperature control and tolerance is very individualized, but this system works great. And we would encourage everyone to just look at those signs and those thermometers, and then definitely give a call to concierge if you are out of range in that room. Okay, make happy or not available on our phones. This is already done. I love these. These are softballs. So if you go into the dining room, main dining room, and I think that they're also in assisted living, but if not, I will check with Phil about how we can make that happen. But if you go into the main dining room, there's a placard on each table, and in the middle of it is something called a QR code. It looks like black and white squiggly lines in the shape of a square with rounded edges. If you hold up your phone to that QR code on the placard, you will be, and take a picture of that. And any of our staff members can help you with this. They're super literate when it comes to technology. That will take you to a website link that will allow you to give your happy or not feedback. So thank you for asking, and I'm so glad that we already have a solution in hand for that. All right, next. Elderly people should not be walking on the nature path alone. People with walkers and wheelchairs should not walk the path at all, and the walk is too steep for safety. So a couple of things on this. We submitted created a McBride and Branch Trail safety tip sheet last year, and we've just dusted it off today, as a matter of fact, doing two things. We've circulated it to residents to make sure it's in your email inbox. We've made hard copies available in those residents that don't have a green dot mail cubbies, and we are in the process right now. We're working closely with Timely Signs to have those safety tips memorialized in weather proof signs for both trailheads. And on a couple of these, we couldn't agree with you more. Not only do we think that just elderly people shouldn't be walking on the trail alone, but we don't think anyone should. Obviously, we're not policing it, but it's always best if you're walking outside, particularly on a path like that or a trail like that, that you walk with someone else. It's a good safety tip, and you'll see it right on the safety tip sheet. In terms of people with walkers and wheelchairs, shouldn't be walking the path at all. We gently disagree. When we negotiated with and hired the trail designer to come in, we knew that we could never get it to ADA compliance because it's in the woods, and it was never intended to be ADA compliant, but it was built to conform with and certified to the National Forest Service accessibility standards. And what that means is that most people can navigate that trail without difficulty. Before opening the trails, we did have our Director of Rehabilitation, Jonathan Papon, traverse the trails using walkers of different types and power mobility devices of different types. And Jonathan is extremely conservative in terms of both his professional licensure and how he applies that, but also how he applies it to our resident demographic. And if Jonathan has even the slightest concern about a safety issue, he will report that. In the safety tip sheet, you will see extensive detail about which devices Jonathan deemed to be okay, which devices he deemed to be not a good idea, and other findings that he had from a rehab perspective. So there are absolutely certain types of walkers and rollators that should be just fine. There are power mobility devices and wheelchairs that should be okay, depending on the types of wheels and so forth. So just take a look at that safety tip sheet. And again, we've put this in everyone's hands as of this morning, if you've gone to your cubby or gone to your email, and very soon you will see those signs at the trailheads. Most important thing, we want people to get out there. Definitely go with someone else. Bring your PERS, and please dress appropriately for ticks, sunburn, poison ivy, those kinds of things. But you'll see those on the tip sheet. All right, the next one, another see something, say something in the safety category. This says the fumes from the beauty salon are dangerous to inhale, and the door should be kept closed at all times. So I have to imagine that this is written by somebody that's not in the salon, because I'm sure that if there were toxic fumes in the salon, the people in the salon wouldn't want the door to be closed and have the fumes in there. But the bigger issue is that we are very much at a time when the products that are being utilized for most hair treatments are far less toxic than they ever were. But if you ever smell anything that kind of gives you pause or is a strong smell, particularly a chemical smell, absolutely please report that to us, because those rooms need to be ventilated for the occupants in there, and certainly going into the hallway. And we want to look into it if you smell something. So we agree. We don't want residents exposed to toxic chemicals either in the salon with the door closed or open, or in the hallways. So if you see, not you wouldn't see it, but if you smell something that makes your nose go a little yucky or whatever, just please let us know right away, because it could be a bigger problem than what you might be attributing it to. Okay, the next one, this is something that we talk about a lot. Because there's really no perfect answer here, but I'll read to you what it says. When concierge leaves the front desk in the evenings or weekends to go to the bathroom, get a drink, or do something in the pack, etc., another staff member should be asked to stand behind the concierge desk so it isn't vacant in the case of emergencies. So this really relates to those times of day. It's not just evenings when concierge might be alone. And this person, whoever wrote this, is clearly concerned about, I guess, safety exposure and so forth. The issue is we don't just have staff kind of around to cover for the concierge on weekends, for example, or in evenings. So because there's no regulation or expectation that that desk be manned 24/7, the way that this gets handled is if there's someone available, the person will come and cover a break, for example. If someone is not available, the protocol is that the reception desk, which is the security desk in the health center, be notified that the person's leaving the concierge desk, because on their computer screens, they see all the video cameras across campus, including the lobbies here in the community building. It's not often that this happens, but the reason I share this with you is because it's indicated to you that we have eyes on what's going on, regardless of whether somebody's at concierge or not. We're not going to staff that with 2 people all the time for the rare events that somebody needs to go to the restroom or whatever it is for a couple minutes. It just doesn't make good financial sense. And we do have the failover system whereby the concierge calls reception and says, I have to step away. Can you please watch the cameras? And remember, if there was ever a real emergency, both desks have a panic button, which when hit, completely lock down access to the campus. So it's not like they would have to relay someone to get from reception over to concierge. They have an immediate ability to lock the campus down, lock the building down by hitting that panic button. So those fail safes are there. Certainly we welcome any further discussion on this, but just trying to be very transparent about how it doesn't make sense to really staff duplication there just for the rare instances when somebody's not there at the desk in evenings or weekends. All right, we're still going. This is a long one today. Fortunately, our wait staff at Woodland Pond doesn't call us guys, which I think means like you guys, as happens in so many eateries. I heard Tanya laid that down as a dismissible offense. I'm very glad to hear that the staff are not calling you guys. Suffice it to say, though, Tanya did not lay that down as a dismissible offense. It's very common vernacular among young people in particular. It's a bad habit. I remember when I was an auditor for PricewaterhouseCoopers, the very first board meeting I ever attended as a young person, I made 2 fatal errors and the partner never let me forget it. Number 1, I had gum in my mouth. I wasn't chewing it, but I did have it in my mouth. And number 2, I referred to the board as you guys. I was early 20s. I was nervous. It happens, but we would never dismiss anybody over that. But I'm glad that it's not happening. And if it does happen or anything like that, please let us know. Okay. Concierge staff should ask that the aides not park people in the wheelchairs at the fireplace hearth in the lobby of independent living. This blocks the path, creating a safety hazard in case of fire, and it causes independent living to look like a nursing home. I think this is where I would ask everyone to just put themselves in the shoes of their neighbors that are more aged or maybe have a declining health condition, and recognize the fact that while that's a hard reality for a lot of us to want to face, this is why we're at this community. And we really don't like to put in policies that particularly target someone that's marginalized and those really severely elderly residents, wheelchair-bound residents. Certainly they are in a category of residents that maybe is not the most abundant, but there's a possibility that any of us could be there. I could have an accident and be wheelchair-bound tomorrow. I would still want to enjoy these amenities. As far as the safety issue, certainly we can talk about this with the Residents Council. And we've talked with the designers about re-articulating the lobby when the new furniture is here within the next year, about possibly putting a seating element there, rerouting the traffic pattern maybe through the lobby itself. This is all in discussion. I will put it to the Residents Council to see if we want to put an absolute restriction on that. The nice thing is we do have the fireplace in the library, which is not an expectation of through traffic. So certainly those are conversations that could happen individually, but again, just gently, this could be any of us someday. And you're here because you wanted to be cared for and enjoy the amenities. And as long as you can safely do that, we've always said that we're welcoming you to do that. Okay. People are saying that New York State has not approved the monetary side of the Woodland Pond expansion. Is it true? And for the person that wrote this, I'm betting you probably wrote this before Dave and I did an 1.5-hour financial presentation last Wednesday. For those that missed that, this was specifically related to the construction and exactly where we are with approvals, and is available on our YouTube channel. I would highly recommend that even if you were there or watched it once, that you watch it again. And this is absolutely right. So there are 6 months of approvals by various agencies that have to happen before we can go to financing. And the very last one is the New York State Department of Financial Services, the New York State Department of Health. And among other things, their decision is predicated on having audited financial statements in hand, which we just received today. The board approved them today. And things like the financing authority, which is the Ulster County Capital Resources Corp, approving it on their end, which we expect that to happen tomorrow at the meeting. So the application is absolutely in with the Department of Health and Department of Financial Services. I've had numerous conversations with the reps at Department of Financial Services, and at this point, they have not asked us for any additional information. They're considering the application to be complete. They have no initial questions or reactions, but there are things that have to happen before they can give their final approvals, and it's also regulatory. So these things can take time. But we're just going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that it takes less time than more, and we will adapt if there's any kinds of delays. The next two, I'm not going to read in depth only because this is getting extremely long, but both have to do with the speed of staff riding their scooters in the roads and parking lots, the way that our staff drives their cars, guests drive their cars, and how our staff drives the maintenance, the smaller maintenance vehicles, the golf cart and the gas-powered Gator. I have sent these both out as is to the staff and asked them to be mindful of this, especially as we're seeing more and more residents out. This is a friendly reminder that no resident should be walking on the perimeter road unless there's a sidewalk. Our perimeter roads are not constructed with any kind of a shoulder, and they are very unsafe to walk on unless you're on a sidewalk. So please do not walk on just the side of the road. There's no shoulders. And whether it's somebody driving slowly, a neighbor of yours that maybe can't see over the steering wheel or is having driving issues, it could be anything. So there's a staff component to this, and there's also a resident component to this. And it's spring, so we have to just be more mindful of that. This one also goes into the question about whether or not Woodland Pond can move into a fully electric fleet of vehicles. And this one specifically references like the maintenance, the gator and the golf cart. So the golf cart that we have, which is a utility golf cart, is fully electric powered. The gator is gas powered. And the problem with some electric vehicles, and I know this because I had one and exchanged it for a hybrid, is they do have limitations. They have towing limitations. They have certain things that they just don't have the horsepower to do. And so for our heavier duty projects and so forth, it's unavoidable for us to use the gas powered technology. As electric vehicles maybe improve, that may change, but we're dealing with the conditions on our site, which we've got very significant level changes, we have very significant topographical changes, and we need vehicles and tools that can help us with that. In no way are we averse to considering electric or hybrid options for anything that we're purchasing, but it's important to know the whys behind why they're here. All right, 2 more, and then we can all take a breather. Okay, somebody wrote, we are getting a 20% discount for a loss of pool. This actually came up as a question in the finance review that we did last Wednesday. And this is a really nice one because our contract with you is very clear on what happens if there are ever interruptions of the services that are promised to you in the contract. So we are, as everyone knows, the pool has been offline because we are replacing the very significant, very expensive $250,000 rooftop unit in the pool area. And the primary driver of that, although there will be an efficiency and comfortability improvement, the primary driver is because the regulations in New York State changed related to the refrigerant that is allowed to be utilized in air conditioning units and heating units. And that unit that's on the pool pack needed to be changed out because the old technology can't hold the new refrigerant. So that's what prompted the entire re-engineering of that particular rooftop unit. And we've been doing this with a bunch of rooftop units. It's just that in the other areas, we don't have to completely close down the area because they have more than one. So I want to refer you to your residence and care agreement to understand what our obligations are and what you can expect when there are interruptions of services of any kind. So in your residence and care agreement, section 2.19, there is something called interruption of services. And it says temporary interruption of services or failure to maintain services that the community provides for residents pursuant to this agreement shall not constitute a breach of this agreement if it results from causes beyond the reasonable control of the community, including fire, natural disaster, labor disturbances, government regulations, acts of war, or acts of terrorism. And this is a change completely promulgated by the change in the government regulation. So it's something that gets carved out and is reasonably understood under the terms of the contract. What we explained when asked about what to expect related to interruptions and things potentially not being available with the construction and the renovation. We are working very hard. And one of the primary reasons that we hired Dave Roberts at a full-time salary was to deal with logistics. And it is our goal to not have any services that are not available to you that are currently being provided and currently contractually required. Rooms may change where they are. You might have a different path to get there, but we are super committed to not having anything significant in any way that you don't currently have access to. We encourage residents to participate in the logistics focus group. That's comprised strictly of residents that are interested in this issue, and obviously keeping our amenities available to all of you. So thank you very much to those residents and to Dave Roberts for taking that head on. And our design team is super interested in this. But there's the provision, and you can read that and understand how that reads. Okay, finally, the last one. This one says, with the potential for Hudson Valley wildfires discussed during last week's heavy winds, People are asking about our insurance and our response plans here at Woodland Pines if we get evacuated or our building burns down. So I wanted to reference you all to something that some of you are aware of and some of you may not be. But beginning in 2017, when Woodland Pines became a standalone entity, that was our first year of being a standalone organization after separating from Health Alliance. One of the first things that we actively decided to do after adopting our first strategic plan was to create what we refer to as our EMP. And this is our master plan for all emergency situations. And the EMP part stands for emergency plans, although I think that there's an M missing. But at any rate, we call it the EMP. And within that book and within the PDFs that attach to it, there are more than 70 individual potential circumstances related to safety and emergency preparedness. And tab 50 is wildfire. And in tab 50, it goes through quite an extensive, it's going to be kind of hard to see here, but quite an extensive series of steps that Woodland Pond will follow. First of all, in the event that there's a wildfire in the area. And secondly, if there's an expectation that the wildfire will engulf the facility. And largely, this response is going to be driven by local emergency management services. This is not something that's going to be driven by Woodland Pond. We will not be making a decision about whether or not Woodland Pond has to evacuate in the event of a fire, whether it's a fire on campus or a wildfire. We are not trained to do that. We are not equipped to make that decision. We are equipped to help once an evacuation has been required. And in the health center, we're actually required to test evacuations every single year, a full physical evacuation. But that decision will be completely made by fire officials, emergency services, and so forth. So that's number one. We would never purport to be in a position to say whether or not that should happen on a wide scale basis. Obviously, there are exceptions to that. Certainly, if I'm in a room or find a resident in a room where a fire alarm or smoke detector is going off and we see smoke or flame, smell chemical burning, etc., we're going to evacuate you. But that's not the wide scale evacuation that this is referring to. We've never had an evacuation of the entire campus or any subsection of the campus, with the exception of where we've had pipe bursts. We've never had, a fire-related evacuation at all. But again, this would be completely driven by emergency personnel. What I would like you to do, and I realized in reading this request that we haven't done this since 2022. We've been remiss in this. But in 2022, as part of our preparing for our big emergency exercise, we recognize that there are circumstances where residents may be displaced. And there's a variety of reasons. And if you look at the form that Lindsay's going to distribute today, you'll see some of them enumerated. But what the form is asking you to do is to tell us what your displacement plan would be. So in the event that for any reason your home at Woodland Pond is not habitable for a temporary or a longer period of time, we want you to think about and let us know where you will go. And if you don't have a place and you haven't thought about something, then we want you to tell us that too. The form is circulated. It's either already gone out today or will be going out shortly. It's both in the form of a fillable PDF, so you can just type the answers in and email it back, or you can print it out and fill it out for us and get it back in. Again, this only really relates to independent living where we need to know. In the health center, both assisted living and Garden View and skilled nursing, we're required under New York State Department of Health regulations to ensure that we have something called transfer agreements in place. And those transfer agreements are with a variety of different facilities across our region, so local counties and adjacent counties. And with each, we have an agreement as to how many residents could be taken by that facility in the event we have to evacuate one of our higher levels of care. So you're required to maintain transfer agreements. They're required to be current, and they have to be able to house in total all of the residents that we have in the health center. Independent living is independent living, though. So in order for us to feel prepared for this, we would ask you to fill out that displacement form. So I hope this answers some of the questions. There was lots of good stuff in there. Please keep these things coming. I know this was a very long weekly address, but hopefully you can refer back to it if you have questions like this. And then the questions for the next week should be related to maintenance and housekeeping. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you soon.